how to overcome anxiety. That's something everybody would wonder at least at some point in their life, but I think probably many people today it's quite a pressing issue. The most important thing to realize at first is that is to stop resisting it. You stop trying to get rid of it. That's the necessary steps. It's important. It's good that people see anxiety as a problem. So you don't just go around ignoring it, or trying to forget about it through engaging with sensuality. At the same time, you do have to recognize that that wanting to be free from it in the long run is not the same as trying to get rid of it right away, right here and now. And it's that pressing need, impatient need of removing it as soon as it arises or as soon as it starts arising. That's why it makes it so much more unpleasant. So if you stop trying to get rid of it, then you can be able to see it closer, to see it for what it is. And what it is that it's not an acute issue or a problem that has arisen as a kind of mistake. It's really mirroring of a very basic, very primordial existential principle, existential discrepancy, if you want to call it like that, which is that this life of mine, my own life, my own environment, it's not my own, in a sense of fundamentally things upon which my life rests, things that determine my life, are not in my control. And that's why anxiety actually, far from being like an acute problem or some error in your programming, it's really just a revelation of the most certain thing when it comes down to your existence. And that thing is, your own existence is not in your control. Doesn't mean that your choices are not in your control, but means that choices are already within that existence, that you have no say in it. You have no say in the fundamental aspects of your environment. You have no say in the circumstances that can affect your life. You can only do the best you can within that limited amount of control. But if you look at it closely, fundamentally, no amount of control can ever change or upturn that order and truly make you the master of your own experience, of your own life. Why? Because fundamentally, the fact that you're going to be subjected to elements, to change, adverse change or positive change, the fact that remains there as something you're fundamentally and utterly subjected to, that's exactly what anxiety reveals. It reveals the discrepancy between your assumption of your world and the actual nature of it. And that's why anxiety is unpleasant. If you were to remove the discrepancy, if you were to remove the view that believes that you are the master control of your feelings, for example, that would basically remove the unpleasant aspect of anxiety, and then anxiety would not be anxiety as you know it. It would simply be a recognition of the fundamental principle of life, which is, it is not in your control. It cannot be fundamentally yours. By that I mean you cannot be the owner, because if you were truly the owner, the life, the feelings would obey you. You would feel only what you want to feel. You would experience only what you want to experience. But the fact that that's simply not possible, you end up living your life at odds with the very nature of it. Your attitude towards your own feelings, pleasure, displeasure, neutral feelings, is at odds with the actual nature of those feelings. They arise on their own. They manifest themselves to you. And that's where the problem arises, whereby when pleasant feelings manifest themselves to you, you want them and you feel fully entitled in doing so. You feel fully entitled in going after them. You feel fully entitled in entertaining them, building your decisions or choices upon them, and so on. But now when you have a disagreeable feeling arises, you equally feel fully entitled to trying to get rid of it right away. I must not be feeling this. I should not be feeling this. So that's what I mean. In order to, like such a kind of subtle, overwhelming, yet so general experience of what is an anxiety, unpleasant anxiety, the first thing is to stop acting out of that sense of, I have a right to not want this. Whatever has arisen, it has arisen on its own. Be it this feeling or that feeling. Which means your rights stop there, so to speak. You have a right to choose like this or to choose like that. You have a right to take responsibility for your choices. But you don't have a right to not feel this, or because whatever is being felt, it's felt on the basis of this life that's subjected to feelings. So that's why it's really, the anxiety is really not about freeing yourself from the unpleasant feeling, it's freeing yourself from the view that you yourself impose upon the very present experience that you have at the time, that then results in this discrepancy. So you can't get rid of a view, whatever the view is, overnight. It won't happen so. So you can't just suddenly shift your view and be free from everything that bothers you. View it's really like a habit of a certain way of perceiving things. So now you need to reprogram the way you perceive things. And you reprogram it when you start following the principles for reprogramming, not just when you want to act out of it when things are only unpleasant. Now I want to do it. Then when anxiety is gone, you forget about it and you pretend like it was never there and your life is fine. There is no such thing as fine life. As in, there is no such thing as life free from anxiety or suffering. There is no such thing as life that doesn't require taking up responsibility, that doesn't require work. So it's really that's not optional. What is optional is how you're going to go about it. Are you going to be trying to mask the fact that anxiety reveals you the most fundamental nature of your existence, that you're not in your control, that your life is not in your control? Like mask it, pretend it's not there, distract yourself with sensual pleasures, or are you going to start accepting responsibility for it and start looking at it? And if sometimes it might feel overwhelming and unpleasant, and that's pretty much because most of the habits are still concerned about running away from it and not accepting it. So it's going to take time to be able to accept it, and once you accept it, then you, as I said, then you realize, well, the unpleasant aspect of anxiety, it's not necessary. Anxiety in itself, as a revelation of that discrepancy that your life is, the way it's lived, that is absolutely fine. That's just how it is. You remove the discrepancy, you remove that displeasure of that anxiety. So if a person, it would be good starting point to sort of stop expecting an overnight solution, stop resisting trying to get rid of it. That's probably the most important. And if you when you have thoughts, oh, how great things would be without this anxiety, you can use that as a motivation to make the effort to understand anxiety, but don't use that as a justification to want to get rid of it. Because the notions you have of how great it would be of being anxiety free are really fantasy. Like if the life was in your control, if the life was the way you think it is, anxiety would be inconceivable. But the fact that it isn't, the fact that it has arisen, the fact that you're experiencing it, means now you have an option. You're either going to pretend that that's a mistake, or you're going to start looking into your own attitude towards your own life and realize that that's the bit that needs changing. Because as I said, anxiety is a symptom, it's not a problem. It reveals the discrepancy that you yourself generate and maintain with your attitude towards your own existence. it's not the problem of your existence. Existence itself is not a problem. The problem arises when there is a discrepancy, when there is a certain disparity. And that's what normal is. Normal life is the life based upon that disparity, contradiction. And that's why normal life requires that constant sort of engagement and maintenance. That's why people are afraid of solitude. That's why people are superstitious. All these little, like fear of solitude, for example, just starts pointing you back towards that which you're running away from with your daily distractions and actions and projects and meanings and so on. When you're alone, you're just left with your own thoughts. And what's going to show itself first? Well, first going to be boredom, then it's going to be dread and anxiety. Because your whole life is about covering it up. And that needs constant kind of floating, constant swimming on the surface. Superstition, same. People develop magical beliefs to mask that little crack in their existence where anxiety shows its head through. But again, if existence were perfect, if existence is the way you would think it is, none of these things would be conceivable. Anxiety, displeasure for that matter, would be absolutely inconceivable. You could not think it. Why? Because you would be the master controller and things would be corresponding to that mastery, your choices, your feelings, your intentions, which means there would be no discrepancy to be felt as displeasure. So it's really comes down to changing your view in regard to your own existence, upgrading it, because it is an upgrade. Once you become aware of the problem, once you become aware of the anxiety, means you become aware, obviously, unwillingly, of the fundamental aspect of your own life. An aspect that's very unpleasant, not in itself, but it's unpleasant because of your own assumptions in regard to your own life that are at odds with it. Stop trying to get rid of the anxiety is the first step. The second step is you have to start looking at it as a symptom, not as a problem, not as something I must deal with it, but something that has an underlying cause that's being revealed to me through that anxiety. And that underlying cause is the very nature of your life, of your feelings, of things you're subjected to, which is at odds with what you think those things are or what you feel those things should be. So that's why that naturally that view, that assumption carries already a sense of entitlement. But for that assumption you're responsible simply because you don't dwell on that nature of that underlying nature of that experience. So you don't dwell enough on the fact that you are not in your control. You don't dwell enough on the fact that feelings arise on their own and you're subjected to them. I mean, you can act out of them, you can try to cover them up, but fundamentally you can never uproot your liability to feel, good, bad or neutral. You just can't. So your efforts are only secondary. The amount of input you can make, it's only relative. It cannot fundamentally upturn that picture. But see, not thinking about these things, feeling entitled to not think about these things, and then feeling even further entitlement towards sensuality and pleasures and craving and ambition in life and trying to get your desires fulfilled, that's how you proliferate that very discrepancy between how things actually are and how you think they should be. And that's exactly where anxiety is. So removal of your expectation how things should be, learning how to accept the way things are, and that's something, as I said, you not do it in a second. You have to keep drilling it. You have to keep training yourself in regard to it, because you're not just dealing with one particular problem. You're reprogramming the entire attitude towards your own existence that you have. And reprogramming takes time, takes repetition, until you undo the wrong programming habits of trying to get rid of the unpleasant feelings as soon as they're manifested, habits of trying to run away from the unpleasant feelings as soon as they're manifested. But that's also another thing you can think about. Why is unpleasant feeling, be it anxiety or anything else, why is it my problem? The anxiety arises, it's felt unpleasantly. Why is that an issue? Why do immediately I must get rid of this? Why? I'm still fully aware and fully responsible for my actions, so I don't need to choose or decide to do anything on account of it. Why I cannot just be with it? Something worth dwelling on. And equally, when pleasant feelings, when enticing sort of perceptions manifest themselves and you want that pleasure, ask yourself, why do I have to follow this desire? Why I cannot just remain equanimous towards it? Again, it doesn't, neither desire for sensuality nor anxiety and unpleasant feeling, neither of those things makes you act. You are the one who chooses to act upon it. Yeah, they can exert different pressure, and that different pressure means different amount of discrepancy, and that depends on where your views are at. The more you feel entitled to sensuality, the more pressure is going to exhibit on you. Same, the more entitled you feel to be free from any unpleasant feeling, the more frightening anxiety will be. But again, doesn't matter how much fear or how much pressure towards sensual pleasure and desire is manifested, you are the one fundamentally and ultimately who decides to act or not out of it. So that's where your responsibility is. So you realize, I don't have to act out of this. I don't have to do anything. I don't have to do anything on account of the arisen anxiety. I could just patiently allow it to endure. But then the mind will be, I must get rid of it, I must get rid of it. Well, I'll endure that thought as well. I'll endure those states of mind. Why? Because fundamentally, as I said, anxiety is not the issue that accidentally, erroneously arose on account of your perfect existence. Anxiety is an issue that reveals to you that existence in its nature is imperfect. But the imperfection, it's not in existence, it's in your attitude towards your own existence. So that's why really anxiety, it's almost like an existential awakening. Because most people, everybody experiences anxiety. That's not optional. And that's the first thing that's going to become apparent if you start accepting it as a symptom of your resistance, not as an issue. You'll see that everybody is subjected to it. But the difference is that most people are still able to maintain that thin layer of ignorance, very frail layer of ignorance upon it. So they can pretend it's not there. But it is. It's always there, it always has been, always will be, for as long as the view towards your existence is at odds with the existence. So it's always there, but some people are still able to keep distracting themselves from it. But that doesn't mean they're dealing with it. It actually, it makes things worse. The more you're distracting yourself from it, the more of that discrepancy, the habit that results in the discrepancy is being reinforced. So if you spend your whole life running away from anxiety, ultimately catches up with you. When death comes, how do you think it's going to feel? If like public speaking or other things cause you anxiety, how do you think when your life starts to shut down? How that's going to feel? When little threats to your existence, secondary threats to your existence, make you anxious. Imagine when that threat is actually being realized and you are dying for whatever reason. Doesn't matter what brings death on. The point is, that's what anxiety is. That's what anxiety shows you. That your life can end at any given time and you have no say in that. Yet you live your life as if you have a say in that. Your health can end at any given time, yet you're fully intoxicated with the fact that you're not ill now and you think you're never going to get ill. Same with youth, strength, and age. That's why those three divine messengers that the Buddha himself was talking about, sickness, aging, and death, are the like messengers. They're the symptoms of the problem. They're not the problem. So you realize this is inevitable, so I better tailor my views, my attitude towards my existence to match this, so that there is no discrepancy affecting me, destroying me, and really making me suffer when it comes. So trying to not get rid of it, accepting it, and then developing an attitude towards your own anxiety as a symptom of an underlying problem, not an issue in itself. And in order to uproot the issue that anxiety is a symptom of, you have to start modifying your own life and your own views towards it. And if you feel like, oh, it's too much work, look at all these happy people around me, that's your own mind sort of playing tricks on you, in a sense of, in a way, it's a lazy thinking. I don't want to do work, look how all these people are happy, I just want to be like that, I just want this to go away. That is wishful thinking. And you can carry on wishing that, and the more you wish it, the more you'll be subjected to that discrepancy. Or you could take up responsibility for it and realize, no, this is something worth addressing, something worth dealing, because it's not something you need to do every time. If you truly properly address it and deal with it, that's it. There is no discrepancy to be felt anymore. That's a true freedom. There is no pressure of sense desires that you can or cannot fulfill. There is no fear of, oh, what if this happened, what if that happened. There are still those thoughts, what if this happened, what if that happened. But those thoughts are now not causing any discrepancy, because you have no expectations. Certainly not assumed fixed expectations as to, oh, this must happen or this should happen. So in that sense, anxiety is still there, but now you are not there with it anymore. You went beyond it. The reason it bothers you is because it threatens to overwhelm you. But it threatens to overwhelm you because you're too weak in regard to it. And you're too weak in regard to it because you never want to take responsibility for developing strength towards it. But if you do so, and you make that effort of being able to allow it to endure, not carelessly acting out of a habit trying to get rid of it, not carelessly trying to distract yourself from it through sensuality and desire, then you'll see it coming and going, yet your mind composure will remain unchanged. And that is a true freedom, when you are not liable to the pressure of your own feelings whenever they arise, whatever they might be as well. So when there is pleasure, you're not trying to get more of it automatically. When there's pain, you're not trying to get rid of it automatically. And when there is neither pleasure nor pain, you're not distracted automatically. So the feeling arise and endure. But the mind state, the composure of your mind remains completely unaffected by that. This should also answer the question whether there is some technique, a meditation technique you can do in order to overcome anxiety. That question, as it should be clearer from this by now, would be coming from that view that I should be getting rid of this, that I should not feel anxiety in the first place. And so once you stop having such expectations, you realize there is no prescription method that you can do that will then prevent you from feeling this. There will be like a prescription method that will prevent you from existing while you're existing. There is no such thing. Which is why, again, we go back to the same. The most important thing you can do in regard to the experience of anxiety is like swallow the hard pill of truth, in a sense of that you realize it really shows you what existence is about. It's not something that can be ignored and then you can pretend that it was never there and continue your life merrily and ignorantly. So if you're able to accept that as a truth, that's already a massive step forward in order to be able to not be affected by anxiety. You can't get rid of it. In the same sense, you can't get rid of your own existence. You can only grow out of that anxiety, whereby when it arises, you are not affected by it. And the only way you'll stop being affected by it is if you stop running away from it, which keeps giving it power. So a symptom that tells you, that reveals the underlying nature of your existence, well, is not what you want to be. It's not what you assume to be. So if you're willing to accept it as such, that's all. It's already like less than half of a problem. The main problem is people still maintaining the prior, or the notions prior to the anxiety. Not prior to anxiety. You're always subject to anxiety. Prior to their anxiety becoming self-aware, and then you think that was the norm before that, but it isn't. As I said, if that were truly the norm, anxiety would have not arisen in the first place, because if you were truly the master controller of your feelings, of your environment, of your life, you would feel only what you want to feel. And the Buddha himself spoke about it many times. He says, which feeling is yours, as in which feeling you think you control, because they keep changing. But if you were truly the controller, you would only feel what you want to feel. And you can apply the same principle towards your own thoughts. If you were truly the controller of your thoughts, you would only think what you want to think. But no, thoughts manifest themselves, they present themselves to you, and then you make choices and decisions and think further based upon that. But fundamentally, they have arisen on their own. That's why they did fundamental ultimate responsibility for your actions. No amount of thoughts arising on their own, no amount of feelings pressuring you on their own, none of that can make you act. Only you choosing to act makes you act. And that's what you're fully responsible for, and there is no excuse for that. Because none of the feelings, none of the thoughts, none of the even the intentions that present themselves, none of them automatically result in this action, or that, oh, I've done this because of that. No. You've done this because you chose that to be the reason for doing this. And that's simply, there's no alternative to this. So that's why that acceptance of what you're subjected to in terms of feeling, in terms of thoughts, in terms of the environment, acceptance in the sense not, okay, I won't do anything about it. Acceptance in the sense, I must not try to get rid of this, but instead I have to look where the real problem is, which is in the discrepancy that I create in regard to things that I'm subjected to. So yeah, I mean, if certain type of environment is causing you overwhelming anxiety, sure, tone it down a bit. Don't expose yourself to it, but not for the sake of sheltering yourself from anxiety. Just for the sake of giving yourself a bit of a break so that you can regain strength to deal with it. And you don't deal with it by go straight into what makes you anxious. No. As I said, you deal with it by changing, upgrading, reprogramming your views about that thing that causes you anxiety, or about life in general. Your expectations, your entitlements, your assumptions. If you get that to match the actual nature of existence, the actual nature of your life, then there will be no discrepancy. So the less disparity between the two, the less liability to anxiety, the less amount of symptoms will be showing. And that's what I mean. It's a gradual work, gradual effort, gradual acceptance in a way, and gradual reprogramming. And you can only do so not based out of a mechanical kind of sets of observances and rules, and I do this and I do this. No, you can only do so by reflecting upon it. So you can only do so by accepting the fearful aspect of it, bit by bit. But you realize that's the work that needs to be done, not that's the work that I must get rid of. It's done when it doesn't affect you. It's not done when it's just not there. Because as I said, anxiety mirrors the nature of existence, which means in a way that mirror is always there. It's just whether you're going to suffer on account of it or not.